The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was the size of a small moon and served as the meeting place for the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Today, 12 different alien races had come together for what they thought would be a simple discussion about territory. Ambassador Lisa Martinez walked through the long corridors of the station. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. Behind her, Admiral Jake Coleman followed quietly. They were the only two humans among hundreds of aliens. Lisa felt small next to the towering creatures around them, but she kept her face calm and confident. The main council chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched so high that Lisa could barely see the top. 12 different sections held the representatives of the major galactic powers. Each section was designed for a different type of alien. Some needed water to breathe. Others required extreme cold. The humans sat in a small area that seemed almost forgotten in the corner. High Commander Velthar of the Zephyrian Empire stood first. He was 8 feet tall with blue-green skin that looked like metal. His forearms moved as he spoke, and his voice boomed across the chamber. "We are here to discuss the human problem," Velthar said. His words were translated into dozens of languages by the station's computers. These creatures have spread into 47 star systems. This expansion must be controlled. General Sikrath of the Drakmor hegemony rose next. The reptilian being's scales clicked as he moved, his yellow eyes fixed on the human delegation. "The Drakmor control over 3,000 systems," Sikrath hissed. "The humans are children playing with toys they do not understand. They need proper guidance." Prime Mystic Eluwin of the Etherian Collective floated above her section. Her body was made of pure energy, shifting between different colors as she spoke. "The Collective agrees," Eluwin said in a voice like singing wind. "Young species often make dangerous mistakes. It is better for all if the humans accept protection from their elders." Lisa Martinez listened to each speaker. One by one, the alien powers made their position clear. Humanity was too young, too weak, and too dangerous to be left alone. The solution was simple. Human space should be divided among the major powers. Each alien empire would take control of several human colonies. This would provide protection and guidance to the human race. Admiral Coleman sat perfectly still during the entire discussion. His weathered face showed no emotion. He had served in the human fleet for 30 years, but the aliens saw only an old man in a simple uniform. They had no idea what he had seen or what he knew. The Chronic Syndicate representative pounded his massive fist on his desk. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. "The humans brought only 3 small ships to this meeting," the Chronic leader growled. "This shows they understand their place. They know they are weak." Laughter rippled through several alien sections. The idea that humans might resist seemed funny to them. After all, what could 47 small colonies do against empires that controlled thousands of worlds? Velthar stood again and addressed the human delegation directly. "Ambassador Martinez," he said, his voice dripping with fake politeness. "Surely you understand the wisdom of this arrangement. Your people would be safe under our protection. You would learn much from your new guardians." Lisa stood slowly. The chamber fell quiet as all eyes turned to her. She was barely 5.5 feet tall, but she held herself with dignity. "High Commander Velthar," she said clearly, "I appreciate the concern that the Council has shown for my people. However, I must request time to discuss this proposal with my government. 48 hours should be sufficient." The aliens exchanged glances. Some seemed amused. Others appeared irritated. The request was reasonable, but they all expected the same answer when the humans returned. "Very well," Velthar said with a wave of one of his 4 hands. 48 hours, but do not think this delay will change anything. The decision has been made." As the council session ended, Lisa and Admiral Coleman walked back to their quarters. The corridors were filled with alien beings discussing the meeting. Most paid no attention to the 2 humans. In their private room, Lisa activated a secure communication device. The device was small and looked like nothing special, but it used technology that was far beyond what any alien in the galaxy possessed. "Earth," "Command, this is Martinez," she said quietly into the device. A voice responded immediately. "Go ahead, Ambassador. The Council has made their intentions clear. They plan to divide our territory among themselves. Request permission to initiate Protocol 7. There was a long pause. Then the voice spoke again. "Understood, Ambassador. Stand by for authorization." Admiral Coleman looked out the window at the 3 human ships floating near the station. They appeared small and helpless compared to the massive alien vessels surrounding them. But Coleman knew the truth. Those 3 ships were not what they seemed to be. Across the galaxy, on hidden military bases that no alien had ever detected, human officers received a simple message. The message contained only 2 words, but those words would change everything. The message said, Protocol 7. After 200 years of careful planning and preparation, humanity was finally ready to show the galaxy who they really were. The aliens thought they were dealing with a weak young species that could be easily controlled. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Lisa Martinez looked at Admiral Coleman. "How do you think they'll react when they find out the truth?" Coleman smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. "I think the galaxy is about to become a much quieter place." Neither of them slept that night. In 48 hours, they would return to the council chamber. When they did, nothing would ever be the same again. The blue and white planet Earth spun slowly in the darkness of space. From orbit, it looked peaceful and quiet. But inside the government buildings of the capital city, urgent meetings were taking place. The most important people in human civilization had gathered to make a decision that would affect the entire galaxy. President Helen Morrison sat at the head of a long table in a room deep underground. The room had no windows, and the walls were made of metal that could block any kind of signal or scanning device. Around the table sat the most powerful military leaders in human space. General Paul Anderson commanded the Space Defense Corps. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his years as a fighter pilot. Next to him sat Admiral Katie Brooks, who led the Deep Space Fleet. She was smaller than Anderson but had eyes that seemed to see everything. "Tell me exactly what they said," President Morrison asked quietly. Lisa Martinez's voice came through the secure communication system from Nexus Prime. "They want to divide our territory, Madam President. Each major power would take control of several human colonies. They call it protection, but we know what it really is." General Anderson leaned forward. "How much time do we have?" 48 hours. Admiral Coleman's voice joined the conversation. "They expect us to agree when we return." President Morrison looked around the table at her advisors. "Recommendations?" Dr. Sam Roberts spoke first. He was the director of Advanced Defense Research, a thin man with thick glasses who looked more like a teacher than a military scientist. But the weapons he had created could destroy entire planets. "We always knew this day would come," Dr. Roberts said. "Every simulation, every war game, every strategic analysis pointed to this moment. The question isn't whether we should reveal our true capabilities. The question is how much we should reveal." Admiral Brooks activated a holographic display in the center of the table. The display showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of small lights marking different star systems. "The aliens think we control 47 systems," she said. "The truth is somewhat different." She touched a control and the display changed. Suddenly, the map was filled with green lights. There were so many that they looked like a cloud of stars. 847 inhabited worlds, Admiral Brooks continued. 12,000 deep space installations, mining facilities, research stations, and military bases that have been operating in complete secrecy for over 2 centuries. General Anderson stood and walked to the display. "Show them the Ghost Fleet." Admiral Brooks nodded and touched another control. New symbols appeared on the map. These were red triangles that seemed to be everywhere at once. 3,000 ships, Admiral Brooks said. Every one of them invisible to alien sensors. Every one of them more powerful than anything the aliens have ever built. Every one of them staffed by volunteers who have lived their entire careers in absolute secrecy. President Morrison stared at the display. Even she had never seen the full extent of what her people had accomplished. How is this possible? How? Did we hide so much for so long? Dr. Roberts smiled. The same way we've done everything else, Madam President. Very, very carefully. When we first made contact with alien civilizations, we realized we had two choices. We could try to compete with empires that had been expanding for thousands of years, or we could let them underestimate us while we prepared for the inevitable conflict. Every human colony that the aliens know about is real, General Anderson added. But for every visible colony, we built 20 hidden ones. For every ship they've seen, we built 100 that they haven't. We've been preparing for this war since before most of us were born. President Morrison walked to the window that showed the Earth below. And our people? The civilians on the known colonies? They don't know, Admiral Brooks said. Only military. Personnel with the highest security clearance know the truth. The colonists believe they're living on the frontier of human space. They have no idea that there are hidden bases all around them. Dr. Roberts activated another display. This one showed technical specifications for human weapons and ships. The numbers were incredible. Our smallest frigate has more firepower than their largest battleship, he explained. Our defensive systems operate in dimensions that most alien species haven't discovered yet. Our computers process information faster than their brains can. Think. General Anderson returned to his seat. The question is strategy, Madam President. Do we reveal everything at once, or do we show them just enough to make them back down? What do our psychological profiles tell us about the alien leaders? President Morrison asked. Admiral Brooks brought up files on each of the major alien representatives. High Commander Velthar of the Zephyrians is aggressive but not stupid. If he sees that he can't win, he'll retreat. General Suskarath of the Drakmor is more dangerous. His species values strength above all else. He might see our revelation as a challenge rather than a warning. And the others? Mixed, Admiral Brooks said. Some will be impressed, others will be terrified. A few might even be relieved. But they'll all understand that they made a serious mistake. President Morrison returned to her chair. Dr. Roberts, in your professional opinion, what will happen when we reveal our true capabilities? Dr. Roberts was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, Madam President, I think the galaxy will go into shock. Most of these civilizations have never encountered a species that could challenge them. They've grown comfortable being the strongest powers in their regions. When they realize that humans have been secretly building a force larger than all of their fleets combined, it will change everything. Will they unite against us? Unlikely, General Anderson said. These species have been rivals for centuries. They're not going to suddenly trust each other just because humans turned out to be stronger than expected. More likely, they'll each try to make separate peace deals with us. President Morrison looked at each person around the table. This is the moment we've been preparing for since first contact. Are we ready? Yes, Madam President, Admiral Brooks said. The Ghost Fleet has been on standby for 72 hours. Every hidden base is at maximum alert. Our people are ready. Dr. Roberts, all systems are operational, Madam President. Our technology works exactly as designed. General Anderson, the Space Defense Corps is prepared for any response, Madam President. If the aliens decide to fight instead of negotiate, we can protect every human world. President Morrison was quiet for several minutes. Outside, Earth continued its slow rotation, unaware that the fate of the galaxy was being decided in a room far below its surface. Finally, she spoke. Authorization granted for Protocol 7. Full disclosure authorized. Admiral Coleman, Ambassador Martinez, you are cleared to show them who we really are. Across human space, messages began to flow through secret communication networks. On hidden bases throughout the galaxy, human military personnel who had lived in shadows for their entire careers received the orders they had been waiting for. The time for hiding was over. 48 hours later, the council chamber at Nexus Prime was filled with expectant alien representatives. They had spent the last 2 days making plans for dividing human territory among themselves. Some had already chosen which human colonies they wanted to control. Others had discussed how to best use human labor for their own projects. Ambassador Lisa Martinez and Admiral Jake Coleman entered the chamber exactly on time. Their footsteps echoed in the vast space as they walked to their small section. The Aliens watched them with amusement. These two humans looked so confident for people who were about to surrender their entire civilization. High Commander Velthar stood as soon as the humans were seated. His forearms gestured broadly as he spoke. "Ambassador Martinez, Admiral Coleman," he said with fake politeness. "I trust you have had time to consider our generous offer. The Council is prepared to hear your acceptance." Lisa Martinez stood slowly. The chamber fell silent as every alien eye focused on her. She looked small and fragile compared to the massive beings around her, but her voice was clear and strong. "High Commander Velthar, honored representatives of the Galactic Council," she began. "After careful consideration and consultation with our government, humanity must respectfully decline your offer of protection." A ripple of surprise went through the chamber. Several alien representatives began talking at once. This was not the answer they had expected. General Sikarath of the Drakmor rose from his section, his scales clicking angrily. "You refuse our protection? You would rather face the dangers of the galaxy alone?" "We appreciate your concern for our welfare," Admiral Coleman said, standing beside Ambassador Martinez. "But humanity has decided to maintain full sovereignty over our territory and our people." The Chronic Syndicate representative pounded his desk with his massive fist. "This is madness. You have 3 small ships and think you can stand against our combined fleets. You are either very brave or very stupid." High Commander Velthar's blue-green skin darkened with anger. "You misunderstand the situation, humans. This was not a request. This was a decision that has already been made. You will accept our protection, or you will face the consequences." Admiral Coleman smiled. It was the first time any alien in the chamber had seen him show any emotion. He reached for the communication device on his belt and spoke a single word: "Illuminate." For a moment, nothing happened. The aliens looked confused. Some began to laugh, thinking that the human had lost his mind under pressure. Then space around Nexus Prime erupted into light. Where there had been empty darkness moments before, massive human warships began to appear. They materialized out of nothing, as if they had been invisible ghosts suddenly becoming solid. The 3 small human escort ships that had been docked at the station revealed themselves to be enormous dreadnoughts using holographic camouflage to appear smaller. Within seconds, the space around Nexus Prime was filled with human vessels. There were ships of every size and type. Sleek destroyers moved alongside massive battleships. Carriers launched squadrons of fighters that danced through space like deadly birds. At the center of the formation was a ship so large that it dwarfed even the biggest alien vessels anyone had ever seen. The aliens in the council chamber stared in shock at the displays showing the space around the station. The numbers were impossible. How could so many ships appear from nowhere? Where had they been hiding? Admiral Katie Brooks appeared on the main display screen in the chamber. She was speaking from the bridge of the massive flagship, which gleamed with unknown metals and bristled with weapons that looked like nothing the aliens had ever seen. "I am Admiral Brooks, commanding the United Earth ship Leviathan," she said, calmly. "What you see around this station is one of our standard patrol fleets, 847 ships of various classes." The chamber was completely silent now. Even the smallest alien breathing sounds had stopped. Admiral Brooks continued, "At this moment, 846 identical fleets have revealed themselves throughout the galaxy. Every major trade route, every military installation, every alien homeworld now has a human fleet in position nearby." Prime Mystic Eluwin of the Etherian Collective was the first to find her voice. Her energy form flickered wildly as she spoke. "This is impossible. Our sensors show no indication of such a massive force. How long have you been hiding from us?" "Admiral," Coleman looked up at the displays showing the human fleet. "We have been preparing for this moment for 237 years. Since the day we first made contact with galactic civilization, we knew that this conversation would eventually happen." Dr. Sam Roberts appeared on another screen. His thin face and thick glasses made him look harmless. But the aliens were beginning to understand that appearances meant nothing when dealing with humans. "Our ships use technology that operates beyond your current understanding," Dr. Roberts explained. "Quantum stealth systems, zero-point energy, gravitational manipulation. While you have been expanding your empires, we have been advancing our science. High Commander Velthar found his voice, though it shook with shock. You deceived us. For centuries you made us believe you were a weak, primitive species. We never lied to you, Ambassador Martinez said. We simply didn't tell you everything. The colonies you know about are real. The ships you've seen are functional. We just didn't mention the other 800 colonies and 3,000 hidden ships. General Skarath's yellow eyes narrowed. If you possessed such power, why did you hide it? Why not claim your place among the great powers of the galaxy? Admiral Coleman's expression became serious. Because we learned from our own history, General. On our homeworld, we fought terrible wars because different groups wanted to control others. We decided that if we ever encountered other species, we would prefer peace. But we also learned that peace can only be maintained through strength. The display screens around the chamber now showed human fleets positioned throughout the galaxy. The scope of what humanity had accomplished was staggering. While the alien empires had been competing with each other for territory and resources, humans had been quietly building the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Brooks spoke again from the bridge of the Leviathan. The human government has authorized me to make our position clear. We do not seek conflict with any species. We do not want to conquer or control others, but we will not accept being conquered or controlled ourselves. Prime Mystic Aluwin's energy form shifted to deep purple, a color that indicated confusion and fear among her people. What do you want from us? Nothing, Ambassador Martinez said simply. We want to be left alone to live our lives in peace. We are willing to trade, to share knowledge, to work together on projects that benefit everyone. But we will not accept demands for submission from anyone. The chamber remained silent for long minutes. The alien representatives stared at the displays showing human ships that had appeared from nowhere. Ships that were clearly more advanced than anything they possessed. Ships that could have destroyed their fleets at any time but had chosen to remain hidden instead. Finally, High Commander Velthar spoke again. His voice was much quieter now, and all traces of arrogance were gone. What happens now? Admiral Coleman looked around the chamber at all the alien representatives. Now you decide how you want to proceed. We hope you will choose peace and cooperation, but the choice is yours. The revelation was complete. The galaxy had just learned that the species they had tried to divide among themselves was actually the most powerful force any of them had ever encountered. And that force had been watching them, preparing for this moment for over 2 centuries. The silence in the council chamber lasted for nearly 10 minutes. The alien representatives stared at the displays showing human fleets that had appeared throughout the galaxy. Some were calculating the numbers. Others were trying to understand how their sensors had failed to detect such a massive force. General Eskarath of the Drakmor was the first to break the silence. The reptilian being's scales rattled as he stood up in his section. This is an impressive display, he hissed. But ships appearing from nowhere proves nothing. How do we know these vessels are more than just illusions? How do we know they can actually fight? Several other alien representatives nodded in agreement. The Chronic Syndicate leader pounded his desk again. Yes, anyone can make ships appear and disappear with holograms. Show us what these vessels can actually do in combat. High Commander Velthar of the Zephyrians crossed his forearms. The Drakmor speak truth. We have seen magic tricks before. If you want us to believe your ships are real weapons, then demonstrate their power. Ambassador Martinez looked at Admiral Coleman. They had expected this reaction. The aliens had been the dominant powers in the galaxy for so long that they couldn't accept the truth without proof. Admiral Coleman activated his communication device. Admiral Brooks, the Council is requesting a demonstration of our capabilities. Authorization requested for limited engagement. Admiral Brooks's voice came through the speakers clearly. Understood, Admiral. We have several volunteer ships ready to provide a demonstration. What level of force should we display? Minimal, Coleman replied. The goal is education, not destruction. On the displays, the alien representatives could see the human fleet repositioning itself. One ship separated from the formation and moved to an area of empty space several thousand kilometers from the station. The vessel was called the UES Avalanche. Compared to the massive flagship Leviathan, it was a medium-sized destroyer. But even this smaller ship was sleek and deadly-looking, with a hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Commander Lisa Park appeared on the communication screens. She was a young woman with short brown hair and calm eyes. She looked like she could have been anyone's daughter or sister, which made what happened next even more shocking. "This is Commander Park of the UES Avalanche," she said. "We are prepared to demonstrate human defensive and offensive capabilities. However, we will need an opponent willing to engage in combat." General Scrath stood immediately. "The Drakmor accept this challenge. Our flagship Stormclaw will face your vessel." "I'm afraid that would not be a fair demonstration, Commander," Park said politely. "One ship against one ship would not show the true difference in our capabilities. Perhaps you could send your entire fleet?" The alien representatives gasped. The Drakmor fleet consisted of 17 ships, including their massive flagship. The human commander was suggesting that her single destroyer could fight an entire enemy fleet. General Sikrath's eyes blazed with anger. "You mock us, human?" "Not at all," Commander Park replied. "I'm simply trying to create a fair test, but if you prefer, we can start with just your flagship and add more ships as needed." The Chronic Syndicate representative leaned forward. "The Chronic will provide the test. Our flagship Bloodfang and its full escort will engage this human ship. 17 vessels against one. Let us see how well your technology performs." Within minutes, the Chronic fleet moved into position. The Bloodfang was a massive battleship covered in armor plating and weapon systems. Its 16 escort ships included cruisers, destroyers, and fast attack vessels. Together, they represented enough firepower to destroy a small planet. The UES Avalanche looked tiny compared to the alien formation. The single human ship was outnumbered 17-1 and outmassed by more than 50-1. Every logical calculation said that the aliens should win easily. Commander Park's voice remained calm as she spoke to the Chronic fleet. "Attention, Chronic vessels. You may begin your attack at any time. We will defend ourselves accordingly." Chronic leader roared orders in his own language. Immediately, all 17 ships opened fire with every weapon they possessed. Energy beams, plasma cannons, and missile swarms filled the space around the human destroyer. The attack was so intense that the sensors on Nexus Prime were temporarily blinded by the energy output. When the display cleared, the alien representatives expected to see empty space where the human ship had been. Instead, the UES Avalanche hung motionless in exactly the same position. The ship's hull didn't even show scorch marks from the massive attack. "Interesting," Commander Park said. "Your weapons operate on principles that are approximately 200 years behind our current technology. Let me show you how we defend ourselves." A shimmer appeared around the human ship. It looked like heat waves rising from hot pavement, but the aliens realized they were seeing the Avalanche's defensive shields in action. The shields operated in multiple dimensions, turning the most powerful alien weapons into harmless light shows. "Now let me demonstrate our offensive capabilities," Commander Park continued. The human ship moved with impossible grace. It accelerated, turned, and stopped in ways that violated every known law of physics. The Avalanche danced between the alien ships like a dancer performing among statues. As it moved, the human destroyer fired precise bursts from weapons that seemed to cut through alien armor like paper. The Chronic shields, which had protected their ships for decades, simply disappeared when touched by human energy beams. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. When it was over, 16 of the 17 Chronic ships were drifting helplessly in space. Their weapons were destroyed, their engines were disabled, but their life support systems remained perfectly functional. The flagship Bloodfang made one final desperate attempt. Unable to damage the human ship with weapons, the massive alien vessel tried to ram the smaller destroyer. The collision should have destroyed both ships. Instead, the Avalanche's hull absorbed the impact without even registering damage. The Bloodfang, crumpled against the human ship like an aluminum can hitting a stone wall. Commander Park's voice remained perfectly calm throughout the entire engagement. Demonstration complete. As you can see, our defensive systems can handle significantly more punishment than you can deliver. Our offensive systems can penetrate any protection you currently possess. Dr. Sam Roberts appeared on the communication screens again. His thin face showed no satisfaction or pride, only scientific precision. The technological gap is approximately equivalent to the difference between stone tools and modern weapons, he explained. Human ships use zero-point energy for power, quantum computers for targeting, and gravitational manipulation for movement. Our weapons can restructure matter at the atomic level. Our defenses operate in dimensions that most species haven't discovered yet. The alien representatives stared at the disabled chronic fleet in shock. 17 ships had been destroyed by one human vessel in less than 5 minutes. And the human ship had done it without killing a single alien crew member. Commander Park spoke again. Attention disabled chronic vessels. We are transmitting medical assistance protocols to your ships. Our medical technology can treat any injuries your crews may have sustained. We are also prepared to provide repair assistance if you require it. This final gesture stunned the aliens more than the battle itself. The humans had just demonstrated that they could destroy any enemy force with ease. But instead of leaving their opponents to die in space, they were offering help. General Essex Rath spoke in a whisper that his translator picked up. They could have killed us all. Yes, Admiral Coleman said simply. But we chose not to. That choice should tell you more about humanity than our weapons do. High Commander Velthar looked around the chamber at his fellow alien representatives. Fear was visible in every face. They had just witnessed the most one-sided battle in galactic history. But more importantly, they had seen that humanity possessed not just overwhelming power but also restraint and mercy. What do you want from us? Velthar asked quietly. The same thing we wanted 48 hours ago, Ambassador Martinez replied. To be left alone to live our lives in peace. The only thing that has changed is that now you understand the consequences of trying to force us to submit. The demonstration was over. The galaxy had just learned that humanity was not only the most powerful military force they had ever encountered, but also the most dangerous enemy and the most generous ally they could imagine. In the days following the demonstration at Nexus Prime, the galaxy fell into an eerie silence. Trade routes that had been busy for centuries suddenly became empty. Alien military fleets retreated to their home systems. Communication networks that normally carried millions of messages went quiet. Every species was trying to understand what had just happened. The humans, who had seemed like weak newcomers to galactic civilization, had revealed themselves to be the most powerful force anyone had ever seen. Worse, they had been hiding this power for over 2 centuries, watching and waiting while the other species made plans that now seemed foolish. Ambassador Lisa Martinez returned to the council chamber at Nexus Prime one final time. The massive hall that had been filled with arrogant alien representatives 3 days earlier was now nearly empty. Only a few delegates remained, and they all looked nervous and uncertain. High Commander Velthar of the Zephyrians was there, but his proud bearing had vanished. General Skrath of the Drakmor sat quietly in his section, his scales no longer clicking with aggression. Prime Mystic Aluwin of the Etherian Collective flickered weakly, her energy form barely maintaining coherence. Honored representatives, Ambassador Martinez began, her voice carrying clearly through the nearly empty chamber. I have been asked by the human government to address the new situation that has developed. She activated a holographic display that showed the current positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. The scope was still overwhelming. Every major star system now had human ships nearby, watching and waiting. First, I want to assure you that humanity has no intention of using our revealed capabilities for conquest or expansion. We did not build this force to conquer others. We built it to defend ourselves. Velthar spoke carefully, his voice much quieter than it had been before. Ambassador Martinez, what does humanity want from the galaxy now that your true strength is known? The same thing we have always wanted, Martinez replied. To live in peace, to trade freely, and to be left alone to develop our civilization without interference. The only thing that has changed is that now you understand what will happen if anyone tries to force us into submission. On the main display screen, President Helen Morrison appeared. She was speaking from her office on Earth, but her words would be broadcast throughout the galaxy. Citizens of the galaxy, President Morrison began. Today I announce the Morrison Doctrine, which will guide human interactions with all alien species from this point forward. The president paused and looked directly at the camera. Her voice was calm, but firm. First, humanity will not expand beyond our current territory. We have no desire to conquer or control other species. The colonies we possess today are sufficient for our needs. Second, humanity will not interfere in conflicts between other species. Your wars, your politics, and your territorial disputes are your own affairs. We will remain neutral in all such matters. Third, any species that desires peaceful relations with humanity will find us to be generous and loyal allies. We are willing to trade, to share knowledge, and to cooperate on projects that benefit everyone. Fourth, any species that chooses to threaten human colonies, human ships, or human citizens will face the full military might of our civilization. We will respond to aggression with overwhelming force, and we will not show mercy to those who mistake our preference for peace as weakness. President Morrison leaned forward slightly. The choice is yours. We offer friendship to those who want it and destruction to those who demand it. Choose wisely. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in silence once again. The alien representatives understood that everything had changed. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted completely, and there was no going back. Admiral Jake Coleman stood from his seat in the human section. The demonstration you witnessed was performed by one of our smallest destroyers using minimal force. We have 3,000 ships in our Ghost Fleet, and many of them are much more powerful than the Avalanche. I mention this not as a threat, but as information you should have when making your decisions. Over the following weeks, the responses from various alien species began to reach Earth. The results were exactly what human strategists had predicted. The Zephyrian Empire sent a formal diplomatic mission offering a non-aggression treaty and requesting trade agreements. High Commander Velthar personally apologized for his earlier threats and asked for human assistance in developing better medical technology. The Etherian Collective offered to share their knowledge of energy manipulation. In exchange for human computer technology, Prime Mystic Ailuwin expressed amazement at human quantum computing and wanted to learn how it worked. The Drakmor hegemony took longer to respond, but eventually General Eskrath sent a message acknowledging human strength and requesting permission to visit human space as an honored guest. For a warrior species like the Drakmor, strength commanded respect. Several smaller species that had been oppressed by the major powers sent secret messages to Earth asking for protection. Humanity politely declined these requests, explaining that they would not become involved in existing conflicts, but offered to mediate peaceful solutions if all parties agreed. The Chronic Syndicate, whose fleet had been disabled in the demonstration, surprised everyone by sending gifts of rare metals and a formal apology. Their leader explained that the Chronic respected strength above all else, and humanity had proven their strength beyond question. Only a few species chose hostility. The Nexari Consortium attempted to rally other races against humanity, claiming that no single species should possess such power. Their calls for a united front against humanity were ignored by everyone else. The Nexari found themselves isolated and eventually sent their own diplomatic mission to Earth, begging for forgiveness. 6 months after the revelation at Nexus Prime, Admiral Coleman stood on the bridge of the UES Leviathan, looking out at the stars. The massive human fleet was preparing to return to its hidden bases throughout the galaxy, but everything had changed. The secret was out, and the galaxy knew the truth about human power. Captain Nina Walsh, his tactical officer, joined him at the observation window. She was a veteran of 30 years in the Ghost Fleet, one of thousands of humans who had lived their entire careers in secrecy. "It's quieter out there than it's been in centuries," Captain Walsh observed, watching alien ships carefully navigate around human space with obvious respect. "Good," Admiral Coleman replied. Quiet is what we were hoping for all along. The human fleet began to disperse, with ships heading to dozens of different star systems. But now every alien in the galaxy knew they were there. The age of human secrecy was over, but the age of human peace had begun. On Earth, President Morrison met with her military advisors one final time. The room was the same underground chamber where they had authorized Protocol 7, but the atmosphere was completely different. Assessment? The President asked. General Anderson smiled. Mission accomplished, Madam President. The galaxy understands that humanity is not to be threatened. Our colonies are safe, our trade routes are secure, and our people can live in peace. Admiral E. Brooks nodded in agreement. The psychological impact was exactly what we predicted. Most species are now competing to become our allies, rather than trying to conquer us. Dr. Roberts looked up from his reports. The technological demonstration was particularly effective. Several species have already asked to exchange scientific knowledge with us. We may actually see an acceleration in galactic technological development as a result. President Morrison looked around the table at the people who had helped her change the course of galactic history. What about the Ghost Fleet? Do we keep them hidden? No need. Admiral Coleman's voice came through the communication system from space. The secret is out, Madam President. Our people have served in shadows for over 2 centuries. It's time they got the recognition they deserve. The President stood and walked to the window showing Earth below. Any regrets about revealing our true capabilities? None, Admiral Brooks said. We always knew this day would come. The only question was whether we would be ready when it did. We were ready. The meeting ended, and the participants went back to their regular duties. But outside among the stars, the galaxy was learning to live with a new reality. Humanity had unveiled its full military might, and the galaxy had indeed gone silent. But it was the silence of respect, not fear. The silence of species that had learned wisdom rather than destruction. In the end, humanity had achieved what they had always wanted. They had found their place in the galaxy not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals who demanded respect and gave it in return. The 200-year plan had worked perfectly. The galaxy was finally at peace.